Hello and welcome to this Museum Development England Organisational Health Check for Museums webinar. Today I'm going to take you through how to complete the Organisational Health Check for 2021-2022. So I think we'll get started. So the purpose of this session is to introduce the 2021-22 Museums Organisational Health Check, and there have been some revisions since last year, to help you understand how completing it feeds into your museum's forward planning, to discuss and consider the sections of the health check and how you can think about what that means for your museum, and to enable you to self-assess and score the museum on all of the areas provided. So this will provide you with an indicator of the museum's overall organisational health. So what is the museum's organisational health check? Well, it's designed as a self-assessment tool and it's an indicator. So it helps you to highlight the museum's current best practice, understand where the museum has some development needs, and to feed those into your forward planning. It includes questions about equality, diversity and inclusion, which more fully reflects that museums welcome people from all backgrounds. Completing the health check will enable you to prioritise your areas of working over the next 12 months and provides you with a benchmark for future work and an opportunity to measure yourself if you do the health check on another occasion to see where you have improved in certain areas. There is space on the form to reflect on the impact of COVID-19, so please complete the free text field at the end of each section. Completion times will vary. The health check will encourage lots of discussion and engagement with your team, so we think you should allow at least 90 minutes for completion. How it works then. The museum's organisational health check, you complete it through an online link, and this enables museums to discuss and understand the areas they're doing well and also areas of challenge. So you can have the discussion and fill in the online link later, so you can download a copy of the form and discuss the questions, or you can just do it straight into the online form. The results feed directly into your museum's forward and business planning, so that's really helpful. Help you to prioritise. Museums across England in all regions are completing the health check, and the results are feeding into regional and national museum development and Museum Development England information. So that's really helping the picture across England to be more fleshed out. Museums are asked to score themselves as a self-assessment exercise based around a question about forward and business planning and 6 themes. So the 6 themes provide an opportunity for discussion around key developments for the museum. There might be other things that you think are important, and please do use this opportunity to discuss those within your team as well. So getting started then, we would recommend that you use a cross-section of the museum team to complete the health check. So this gives perspectives from across the operation of how the museum works, and that gives a broad view. You'll need a copy of the museum's organisational health check, you'll need the scoring page, and you'll also need the areas of improvement or areas of development that were identified in your most recent letter from Arts Council England, which confirmed your accreditation status. So there is a question at the end of the health check which asks you about the areas of development that you've been asked to work on. Museum development, what do we need? Well, we need 1 completed organisational health check from each museum, and it needs to be completed using the online link. So to get a copy of the online link and understand how that works, please contact your museum development provider in your region for more information and for the link to complete the survey. Once it's completed, the museum will receive a bespoke advisory report with a summary of the results and suggestions in there of where you can access support for the areas of need that you've highlighted. So there'll be a selection of links and best practices to send you to information that will help with those areas that you've identified. So that's getting started. Okay, so let's think about what the health check themes are. So I've just mentioned that there are a couple of questions about the forward stroke business plan. Then there's these 6 key areas: governance and leadership, financial planning and resources, people development and management, working practices, audiences, and collections. And within each of these themes, there are a short series of questions for you to talk about and consider, and then to give yourselves a score. This is the format for the scores. So 0 is we don't do this at all, and 4 is we're excellent at this. This is where the discussion is really important, because it's good to work out where you think you might be, and particularly to think, well, what does a 4 look like for us? When you discuss each theme with your colleagues, think about the evidence that you might have available and examples of how your museum works. So we're suggesting that when you consider the statements within each theme, that you actually discuss what a score of 4, we're excellent at this, actually looks like, and how this matches against best practice. And this might be a good discussion and thinking about other peer museums to like you and what excellence looks like. But by working together and discussing this evidence, this enables you to reach a consensus, and it will support your scores for each section. This is why we think a cross-section of the team is important, because it gives everybody an opportunity to talk about what really happens in the museum. So let's get started then on the forward and the business planning. So when we think about this, the forward business plan is fundamental to how your museum plans ahead. It's this tool that helps everyone understand the museum's priorities, the opportunity and the challenges, and it should be used to monitor progress and development. So there are a couple of questions around forward and business planning. So it's saying to you what we're asking you to think about is, what does the museum do really well around forward and business planning? Are you really clear about your aims and objectives, for example? Do you know how well the previous business plan worked, and have you reviewed and monitored that? Do you understand how diversity is reflected throughout the business plan? And what evidence or best practice have you got available to support the score? So I'll just give you a couple of moments to think about discussing the forward and business planning. And if you're using this film alongside completing the form, you might want to leave the film now and come back in a little while when you've had time to complete it and do your scores and your notes. If you're returning, we're now on to starting the 6 themes. So the first one of these is governance and leadership. And good governance is absolutely at the heart of a thriving museum. For an independent museum, this is typically delivered through your board of trustees, but in a local authority museum, this can be through varying levels of leadership and delegated authority. So we're asking you again, think what does the museum do really well? And what will a score of excellence look like for this? So, for example, do you have a clear vision and purpose? Do you consult with your stakeholders and people who are involved with the museum about how that vision and purpose looks? Do you offer support and challenge to your workforce, for example? Do you have equality and opportunity embedded throughout your governance and leadership? Do you think about how your board is constructed, who is represented on the board, what skills, experience and representation they bring to that? So all of these things you need to start thinking about. So within that theme, what would you like to improve or develop? In giving yourselves a score, what evidence or best practice is available to support that? So there's some areas to think about and a series of questions to look at on the form. So if you'd like to discuss governance and leadership and complete the scores and the notes, now's the time to do it, and come back to the film when you've had time to consider it. Section 2 is financial planning and resources, and welcome back if you've just come back from discussing governance and leadership. Within financial planning and resources, sustainable and resilient museums secure, allocate and manage financial resources to deliver their core purpose. So we're making that link, obviously, between your core purpose, your purpose for being, but also your forward and business planning. So you need to think about, what do we actually do well with our financial planning? What does a score of 4, we're excellent, look like? So do we regularly review our financial position? Do we have financial policies and procedures in place? Do we have finances coming from a variety of sources rather than just reliance on one income generation? How are we looking to diversify our income, for example? Think about what that score looks like for your organisation and what within financial planning and resources the museum would be like to improve or develop. Look at the questions on the form and think about the evidence and the best practice that's available to support your score in this area. Discuss your financial planning and resources and complete the scores and the notes. And please come back to the film when you've had an opportunity to do that. Number 3 of our 6 themes is people development and management. So an effective museum workforce has within it the right set of skills needed to deliver the museum's aims and objectives. So the people that help you to achieve this, they could be staff or volunteers, they might be freelancers, consultants, and other stakeholders where appropriate. You might have different partners working with you. So within people development and management, what does the museum do really well? So are you aware of the skills that you need to deliver your business plan? For example, do you actually do you know the skills that are available to you? Do you actually do a skills audit of your staff and volunteers? Are you aware of what you need? Do you communicate really well with everybody in your organisation? How does that work? Do you recruit in an open and transparent way to encourage a wide variety of people to get involved in how the museum works? So think about the questions that are on the form. Think about what a score of 4, we're excellent at this, looks like for you. So as a rounded thing, what is that score going to look like? And within this area, where would you like to improve or develop? What evidence or best practice is available to you to support the score? So discuss people development and management and spend a bit of time completing the scores, making some notes, take a break from the film and come back when you've had an opportunity to do that. Moving on, this is number 4, working practices. So working practices encompass the culture of an organisation. Good working practice encourages communication, innovation, partnership working, and a thriving museum welcomes these new ideas and is open to change. So again, what does the museum do really well? We're asking questions in this section, including things about how well the museum works within the museum code of ethics, for example. So we're asking you a question about that, and you might want to think about what you do, how you promote equality and inclusion within working practices. Also within this section, we're thinking about environmental sustainability. So what does the museum do really well in that area as well? And how do we encourage staff and volunteers and people we're working within the museum to be innovative, to think creatively for the good of the museum? How do we manage that? So what you need to do is you need to think about, what does the museum do really well? What's this score of 4, we're excellent at this, look like for you? Are there areas that you would like to improve or develop? And what evidence or best practice is available to support the score for number 4, working practices? Take some time with your team, discuss working practices and how it actually works in the museum. Then reach that consensus, complete the scores and the notes, and come back to the film when you're ready. Number 5 is audiences. And within audiences, a museum has both current and potential audiences. So people who you haven't yet reached, who are not visiting potentially or using you in other ways. And an effective museum consults and includes people, audiences, in the creation and delivery of its activities. So the museum would be aware of potential and target audiences, and they would plan for this appropriately. And you would market and communicate what your offer is in a variety of ways. So within the audiences theme, what does the museum do really well? So it's about saying, do you understand who your audiences are? Do you do some data analysis, some data capture, and then some data analysis? Are your museum facilities accessible to people in the whole widest sense? So not just the physical building, but in the widest sense, are places accessible to different audiences? Do you listen and consult with people when you're thinking about new plans, and how does that work? And how does your marketing work? Do you have an effective marketing plan and a strategy? Are you making the best use of all those opportunities to reach out to different people? So within this section, think about what the museum does really well. Think about what that score of 4, we're excellent at this, looks like, and what you'd like to improve or develop around your audience engagement. What evidence or best practice do you have that's available to support the score in this area? Take some time to really discuss audiences and think about those issues and the questions that are on the form, and then complete the scores and the notes. Pause the film and come back for the final theme. The final theme in the area of the organisational health check is around collections. So a museum's collection is at the heart of the organisation. It's central to the purpose of the organisation, and it's what makes museums unique. It engages with all the other aspects of what we do. And good collections management shows a clear understanding of the collection, its needs, and how to use it to engage with audiences. So you need to think about, what does the museum do really well in this section? And the questions around this, think about encouraging you to think about, do you understand the significance of the collection? Do you actually review the collection? Are you working to the correct collections management standards for it? And are you thinking about how to make it more accessible to people? So what's your digital offer looking like? And are there opportunities there that you could be focusing on for the future? Within this section, you need to again think about what the museum does really well. So I'm sure, as in all the sections, there will be certain questions that you do brilliantly and will score really highly on. But what does a score of 4, we're excellent at this, actually look like for collections? Which sections of the collections theme would you like to improve or develop? And what evidence or best practice is available to you to support this score? So spend some time discussing collections and completing the scores and the notes. Then come back to the film for the final roundup of what happens next. So welcome back, and congratulations if you've completed all 6 themes and the business planning section of the organisational health check. There are a couple more areas we're asking for information. The first one of these is about accreditation. So we're asking all museums who complete the organisational health check to refer back to your most recent accreditation award letter from Arts Council England, and to please list the areas of improvement or areas of development that are identified in the spaces provided. So please have that to hand and complete that. And then we're asking you to identify what your top 3 priority areas for development over the next 12 months are. And so this is a really good opportunity to look back at your scores to see where you've identified development areas, and to sit and think, well, where do we want our priority areas to be? So we've listed the 6 key areas, but there's also a section there for other. So if you think there's something that's not reflected in the 6 themes, then please do put that in there. When you list your top 3 priority areas, number 1 will be your top priority. So just a reminder about that. And the final stage is really, please complete the online Museums Organisational Health Check using the link. So we cannot accept things that aren't provided using the link, because that pulls all the data together. And this is available from your museum development provider. So please do get hold of that. And what happens next? Well, the information you've provided will be used to create this short advisory report for your museum. And this will highlight your self-identified priority areas. So the 3 areas that you've picked as being your priority areas, they will be dealt with more detail, and they will be signposting to potential areas of museum development support and external resources for those 3 key areas. And that might be helpful to you when you're thinking about development. The information that's gathered will be used by museum development regionally, so by your regional team, but also nationally by Museum Development England, to understand current trends and to help create targeted support through programmes and development for museums. So it does really help us get that overarching picture, not just regionally for what's important, but also into the national picture. If you repeat the organisational health check at regular intervals, you'll be able to see how the museum has evolved, and you'll be able to see highlighting where you've developed and potential areas for growth in the future. So please do think about completing it again in the future. There's some information here about data protection. So information will be used by your regional museum development team to produce this tailored advisory report, plus the signposting and support. And the Museum Development Network uses data from all the surveys to understand trends and indicators across museums in England. Any data published may be in a variety of forms, but no personal information is ever published, and museums will not be individually identified. So information that's gathered identifies trends, but not individual museums. And if you, for any reason, don't wish for any of the information you have submitted about the museum to be published or shared, then please let Museum Development know by the email address there. Thank you very much for watching. This film is supported by some downloadable slides, the downloadable slides you just watched. So if you want to download those, please do that. And you can obviously watch the film again if you need to, but good luck with completing your organisational health check.